My country, the United States, doesn't spend too much time thinking about it. It's very much America first, whether it's this administration or the one that preceded it, actually, pretty much the same. But what's happened in recent weeks is absolutely alarming. The United States government in the new administration actually voted against, if you can believe this, it voted against a resolution calling for a day of peaceful coexistence. It said no, and it voted against it for two reasons. One, it says the Chinese use the phrase peaceful coexistence, so we think this phrase may be somehow in praise of China, so we won't use the phrase peaceful coexistence. The second was that in the declaration, it said the world supports sustainable development, and the United States government said, no, we do not. We will no longer simply say we support sustainable development. It is not in America's national interest. So, if you ask me, is it a global consensus? Well, we're down one country. I think 192 would still profess consensus. One does not. And that one is on a bit of a, let's say, an adventure right now, every day to prove to the world that it can do what it wants, when it wants, where it wants, how it wants, no matter what anyone else thinks. And that is not exactly conducive to the kind of world that we want.
I think a lot of people may have missed this because they were tracking something else from Washington, D.C., when the U.S. president triggered a global trade war. In February, you quoted Henry Kissinger, the European Parliament, and you said, to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. Would you offer the same advice to policymakers in India as they try to navigate the Trump tariffs?
That line is actually Henry Kissinger's famous line, that if you're a friend of the United States, beware. Very dangerous. I have lived a whole lifetime of America declaring its friendship to countries that end up getting destroyed in part because of that wonderful friendship. I don't think I have to give advice to India. It's a little superfluous, but just be careful, you know? There is no alliance there. India is anyway too big for alliances. You are an alliance in and of yourself. Civilizations behave as civilizations do. And so being the most populous country in the world, you take care in your relations everywhere. But I would say the idea, and I do have to say it, it sounds, I hope I'm not rude or misunderstood, but the U.S. wants to use India, clearly. It wants to use India to beat up China. Don't play the American game. That's my only advice to you. It makes no sense. Again, it's superfluous for me to tell you that, but it is very much on my mind because the entire U.S. foreign policy is divide and conquer in any part of the world. That's how empires behave. That's what the U.S. learned from the master empire of all, the British. We learned at their knee, and we still try to apply it. So the U.S. loves for India to be in the Quad. It wants India to bash China. I heard some Indian politicians recently saying, no, it's not Donald Trump's trade policy, it's all because of China. No, not exactly. It's actually because of Donald Trump. So just be careful not to play the game.
And this is the great American game.
But you've criticized the U.S. in the past for trying to dictate terms and violate international norms. Previous administrations not so brazenly, the current one dropping all pretense. Would you say that the Trump tariffs are an extension of the same mindset, that you can get away with whatever you want?
I think everyone observing the last few days should be rather puzzled what's actually going on in Washington. If you ask me, I will tell you the succinct answer. Nobody knows. And I'll give you the real answer that is the most alarming answer of all. For the first time in American history, we are in a one-man show right now. We're in a one-person show. The authors of our Constitution spent a lot of time, and they were very brilliant, trying to devise checks and balances to this new system that they were inventing in 1787. They would be horrified by what's happening now. What is literally happening now, you should understand. How does one person change the whole world trade system? It wasn't a vote of Congress. It wasn't even a discussion in Congress. It wasn't a public debate. It was literally an executive order. And that is very strange. In the executive order, and you can go to the website of the White House to read the executive order, it says, by the powers invested in me as President of the United States. And then it lists 3 pieces of legislation with the words emergency in them. The President of the United States declared an emergency. Now, this is interesting. He claims that he can declare an emergency and then govern without law, just govern by decree. This is what we had a revolution about back in 1776. Now, what he calls an emergency is anything that Donald Trump wants to call an emergency. So he calls our trade deficit an emergency. Well, no, it's been around for 20-some years. It's got deep economic causes. It's not exactly an emergency. Maybe it's a matter of public interest, maybe not, but it's not something that one person should decide and then overwrite the laws of the land in an emergency decree. So we are profoundly destabilized in the United States right now.
Professor Sachs, if I could come in here. This is the one man that you keep referring to was a man chosen by the Americans. And the joke on social media is that if the US saw what was happening in the US would invade the US to save it from itself. And whatever Trump is doing is not really a surprise. He's been around, maybe more emboldened this time, but he always said what he was going to do, and he's doing that. And the American voter has put him in the White House. With the incidents that you mentioned, would you say that America today is a backsliding democracy?
We once had a little joke that said, why is the U.S. the only country that never had a coup? And the answer is because it doesn't have an American embassy. And it should help to explain the weirdness going on in the United States, because the U.S. is in a kind of neurotic reaction. The neurosis is that the United States expected to be #1 forever. This is the basic point. China ruptured that illusion, so Americans hate China. They hate China. How dare you be a bigger economy than the United States? This violates every rule according to American thinking. And they will come to resent India, I'm sorry to tell you, as you overtake the United States too. Just a little bit of friendly caution to you, because the American mindset cannot understand this is a big world and other countries are more populous and they're not being held back. And the United States is only 335 million people, a little bit bigger than Uttar Pradesh, but not so much bigger. And so it can't be the biggest country in the biggest economy in the world. It's not even possible in a world where technology is everywhere, where skills are everywhere, where the ability to innovate is everywhere. But this is driving the Americans crazy, and it's driving the Americans crazy, especially about China. Don't be pulled into it. I know India and China have their own issues, but settle them, because between the two of you, you're 40% of the world population, and you could actually help to run a very decent world together.
But for the moment, China is looking for trouble, not just to its east, but also elsewhere. We've seen the drills around Taiwan, we've seen the military moves in the South China Sea, and with Donald Trump taking a tough transactional posture, do you think regions like Taiwan can depend on American security assurances?
If ever there is a place for Henry Kissinger's adage, it is Taiwan. To be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. If Taiwan thinks that the United States is going to save Taiwan from China, oh my God, truly God help us.